What's up, guys? UFC 268 just wrapped up, and what an amazing card. The prelims were insane, the main card was fun. The co-main event and main event kind of slowed down in action compared to some of the other fights, but man, they were still great. And what we could say is Trevor Wittman might be the best coach in the game. All three of his fighters won tonight. Not without controversy, not without any kind of struggle. I mean, almost all of his fighters lost tonight too, but they were all able to edge out the decision against their formidable foes. And we're going to start with that main event. Kamaru Usman defeats Colby Covington for the second time, this one by a decision, 248-47 to 149-46. Both guys got better than before, technically speaking. Especially Kamaru Usman's boxing. He boxed differently tonight. He was sliding away from punches like I've never seen him do before. He was coming out there with check left hooks. He threw some good leg kicks, some good front kicks. And Colby Covington, he wasn't as aggressive as I thought he should have been until later in the fight. The 4th and 5th rounds where he started to really pick up the pace and started winning the exchanges and even hurt Kamaru Usman. He rocked Kamaru Usman in the end of that 4th round. Imagine if there was more time in that round. But that was all because he was starting to be more aggressive with his output instead of just hanging back and allowing Usman to back him up. Remember what I was saying in my breakdown before the fight? Colby needs to be the one that's pressuring forward because Usman's defense isn't that sharp. It's better. It definitely got a lot better. But you can see it as Colby was moving forward, Usman just couldn't get away from the punches. He wasn't moving his head. He was kind of like a deer in the headlights. And that's why he got caught by some of those big uppercuts. Just like I said in my breakdown, that low feint right uppercut from that first fight was catching Usman every single time. And it got revisited in this fight, but only in like the 4th and 5th rounds. Even after this fight, I still believe Colby Covington can give Usman all he can handle. It just comes down to the right game plan and how he executes it. If he fought the fight like how he fought the 4th and 5th rounds, he would have a lot more success on the scorecards. But where he started to get caught a bit more was when he was looping his shots from a distance without setting him up off of his jab. His jab was the thing that was essential in the fight. It was allowing him to find his power shots. In that one time when he was throwing that big left overhand, Kamaru Usman was able to check him with a left hook. And that's what dropped him. It was no setup off of a jab, no feints or anything like that, and he dropped his right hand when he was throwing his overhand left. Kamaru Usman timed it perfectly. When Usman was being aggressive, he was winning almost every single exchange. When Colby Covington was being aggressive, he was almost winning every single exchange. That's what this fight pretty much came down to. Who was going to be the one that was going to back up who? And I was pretty excited to see some wrestling finally. Usman was able to take down Colby Covington, but very briefly. No matter who was going to take down who, they are not going to be able to hold the other guy down. Colby Covington did get a takedown in the fight, but they didn't count it. I mean, Usman had both knees on the ground if I'm not mistaken, but they still didn't warrant it as a takedown, which is kind of crazy. So unofficially, Usman has been taken down for the first time in his entire career by Colby Covington. But man, we have to slow down on the greatest welterweight of all time talk. He is not there yet, man. Even with this win against Colby, he is not there with GSP at the moment. I believe he's the second greatest of all time. But the difference between second and first in this welterweight division, it's a massive difference. GSP has the bar raised so high that Usman is not even near there yet, in my opinion. He has half the title defenses, he has good competition beaten, but he doesn't have the longevity that GSP had in terms of beating high-level competition. He's going to need a few more wins in order to reach that status, in my opinion. It's just the excitement of recency bias makes us think that the current champions are just as great as the previous champions or the all-time greats. This happened with Max Holloway. That got shut down when he lost. When 1 or 2 losses should not shut down the conversation. If you are the greatest of all time, 1 or 2 losses is not going to take you out of that. Same thing goes for Kamaru Usman. Think of the scenario that Usman loses his next fight. Do people still believe he's the greatest welterweight of all time? I guarantee nobody would think so. And let's say GSP lost against Johnny Hendricks. Nobody would compare Usman to GSP, in my opinion, if that was the scenario. Because a loss will take away recency bias. Then people are going to be able to see things a lot more clearly in this aspect. But who would I like to see these two guys fight? Leon Edwards beats Jorge Masvidal. That is the fight that needs to happen next. If Gilbert Burns wins his next fight, he's like 1 fight away in my opinion. Now, if Jorge beats Leon and Gilbert wins his next fight, then you're going to have to do the rematch with Usman and Gilbert Burns. So this all comes down to if Leon wins or not. And as for Colby Covington, I would like to see him fight the winner of the fight that's not going to get the next title shot. So if Gilbert Burns wins, and let's say Leon Edwards also wins, now I'd like to see Colby versus Gilbert Burns. If Jorge Masvidal wins, then automatically we have to do Colby versus Jorge. That is the fight that we all want to see next. And with that, we go right into that co-main event. Namajunas defeats Zhang Weili by 48-47 and 149-46. In hindsight, after looking at the fight and breaking it down, I don't think that 49-46 scorecard is that crazy. I thought it was pretty crazy live because in the second round, I thought Zhang Weili rocked Rose and won the round through that. But now with the fact that Zhang Weili did not land anything in that sequence and never really rocked Rose like that, Rose won the round, which automatically gives her a 48-47 scorecard. And then the first and third round were so close, there's an argument that Rose could have won one of those rounds. But looking at the fight accurately, it was a 48-47 for Rose Namajunas. The first 3 rounds are pretty dicey for her, especially the first and third. She wasn't fighting as well from a distance. And even when she tried to make her way in, Zhang Weili's power was making the difference, which ultimately led Rose to be a little bit hesitant in finding her openings. And it took a pretty long time until she started to adapt and start to wrestle and actually be a bit more aggressive. Even going against what the coaches were telling her, she was actually having a little bit more success. When she was sitting from a far distance, she didn't really capitalize on many moments. She didn't enter and exit with a jab like she did against Joanna. And the leg kicks from Zhang Weili were pretty much just taking over the distance striking. And I was actually extremely impressed with Zhang Weili's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in that fight. The fact that she was able to scramble with Rose so well surprised me beyond belief. I could not believe that she was able to get on top into full mount after scrambling for the back. I mean, Rose Namajunas is one of the best grapplers in women's MMA right now, and Zhang Weili is able to scramble with her at that kind of high-paced grappling. Weili is better than I thought she was, but she was being a bit reckless with some of her punches. I mean, she was trying to draw Rose into brawling with her. It worked in moments, but she didn't get the kind of result that she was looking for because Rose is also landing on her. And it's because Zhang Weili doesn't really move her head in those exchanges. She just throws power shots and hopes to overpower you. It was pretty cool to see Rose also throw that same high kick that she knocked Zhang Weili out with in the first fight, but Zhang Weili that time was able to grab onto it, catch it, and take her to the ground. And Rose is going in for that same double leg outside trip takedown and just absolutely controlled the whole 5th round. And we got to start thinking about Rose Namajunas as possibly, I won't consider the greatest strawweight of all time right now, but she is like 1 to 2 fights away from it. I mean, beating Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice and Zhang Weili twice is a feat that sounds crazier the more you think about it. She beat 2 of the greatest strawweights of all time twice. She has defended her belt. She's a 2-time champion. She beat Jessica Andrade. And actually, when I think about it more, her competition beaten is even stronger than Joanna's. I mean, beating Joanna twice and Zhang Weili twice is greater than any win that Joanna has ever had. Joanna's best win is probably against Jessica Andrade. And Rose also beat Andrade. So honestly, you could start thinking of Rose Namajunas as the greatest strawweight of all time. She just doesn't have the title defense record. That's pretty much just it. But who would like to see her fight next? Carla Esparza. I mean, it has to happen. I know they're trying to push Marina Rodriguez for some reason over Esparza, even though Esparza beat Rodriguez last year. And hopefully the conversation gets more serious in terms of Esparza's chances against Rose, because I believe people are a lot more confident in Esparza's chances against Rose after seeing that fight with Zhang Weili. It's something I've been saying for a long time. Esparza is the hardest fight for Rose Namajunas in this entire division. And as for Zhang Weili, I would actually like to see her fight Marina Rodriguez. That would be an excellent fight. And then we go to Marlon Vera knocking out Frankie Edgar in the 3rd round. Frankie was having a lot of success, man. Like I was mentioning it, man, if he was able to take Vera to the ground, his chances skyrocket. He was actually doing amazing in the fight. Showed to be the superior grappler, superior wrestler, even superior in his boxing, catching Vera with those short combinations, and Vera just couldn't find his timing until the 3rd round came. He started conditioning Frankie Edgar with the front kicks to the body and eventually led up to a front kick to the face, in which Vera even acknowledged after the fight. And honestly, man, I feel very bad for Frankie Edgar. He's been knocked out 4 times in his last 5 losses. That's 4 times in the last 3 years. For a guy who has been known to be one of the toughest fighters in UFC history, to be knocked out so often is just not a great thing to see. I mean, technically, he's better than a lot of the fighters in the bantamweight division, but it's just, he can't take those kind of shots anymore. He made a career of taking big shots from the biggest punchers in the UFC. That damage has accumulated, and he just cannot take those kind of shots anymore, man. And ultimately, it was just a great victory for Marlon Vera. It looked like he could have been down 2 rounds in that fight and made it all matter in that 3rd round. So Marlon Vera beat Frankie, who's number 8. That means he's most likely going to be in the top 8 in front of Pedro Munoz. I'm wondering when Cody Garbrandt is also going to leave the rankings because he's at flyweight currently, which means that Marlon Vera might be bumped up to number 7. He lost to Jose Aldo as number 5. 3 of the top 4 contenders are guys without a fight right now. Corey Sandhagen, TJ Dillashaw, and Rob Font are without an opponent. Now Marlon Vera, Merab, Jose Aldo can get any one of those fights. It's going to be an exchange of matchups with those 6 fighters. And personally, the one I would love to see the most is Marlon Vera versus Rob Font. That's the fight I would love to see, man. And as for Frankie Edgar, I think he should retire. I don't think he's going to. They could do him and Cruz. I mean, they're both older guys in this division. That might make the most sense, honestly. Two veterans of the game, two legends going at it. I did miss the majority of the Shane Burgos fight. I'm going to have to go back and watch it. I saw some moments. I saw some of those combinations he was able to land. He was hurting Quarantillo, but definitely have to go back and catch the specifics of that fight. And that leads right into the craziest fight I've ever seen in my life. Justin Gaethje defeats Michael Chandler by a decision. Words cannot express how amazing this fight was. Back and forth action from start to finish. I mean, usually when you get two guys like Chandler and Gaethje, it tends not to live up to the expectations, right? It tends not to be as explosive as we thought it was going to be. Gaethje and Chandler delivered on all levels. It was even more than we expected of the fight, because this fight went to a decision in an all-out battle. These guys took everything from their opponent. Gaethje was hitting him with all the power he had. Leg kicks, right strikes, even dropped him with an uppercut, but Chandler recovered. Left hooks after his right hands, and throwing everything into those punches. Michael Chandler landing with those dynamite of right overhands and right crosses, landing big leg kicks of his own, and the commentary did not talk enough about Chandler's leg kicks from that first round. DC was talking about it more, but the damage he caused to Gaethje's leg in that first round went unnoticed. Look back at that first round and look at Gaethje's posture after taking the leg kicks. Definitely took a huge amount of damage to the legs, and possibly took off a bunch of the power off of his hands, and that might be a reason why Chandler was able to take so many of the punches. That's definitely a reason why Gaethje was able to take so many of Chandler's, because Gaethje was chopping down on those legs as well. And just like Gaethje said about the fight, Chandler was going to shoot. When he felt his power, he was going to shoot, and that's exactly what happened. Not able to take him to the ground at all. I mean, these are two of the best wrestlers, along with Gregor Gillespie, in that lightweight division. But I have to give all the credit to Michael Chandler, man. I, as well as many others, have criticized his chin. I will never talk bad about Michael Chandler's chin ever again. He fought one of the most powerful guys in the lightweight division and took everything he had. Yes, he got knocked out by Charles Oliveira, and it's just a difference with precision striking compared to power striking. Charles Oliveira is much more precise with his punches than Gaethje is, and that was the difference between the two fights. But man, I am so glad Michael Chandler was able to get into the UFC. I mean, he's putting on performances left, right, and center, whether it be a loss or a win. Doesn't matter, his stock is always rising. A lot of people criticize the guy when he got into the UFC, I did as well, of probably not being able to perform or compete with some of the top guys of the lightweight division. He proved all of us wrong. He knocked out Dan Hooker. He almost knocked out Charles Oliveira. He went to war with Justin Gaethje. He is an elite lightweight in the world, and he deserves all of our respect. And of course, Justin Gaethje does as well. It probably should be Justin Gaethje versus the winner of Dustin Poirier and Charles Oliveira. I personally like to see Islam Makhachev get that shot, but if we're going to go by what's fair, Gaethje is a higher ranked contender. He lost to Khabib as almost everybody else did, and he just beat Michael Chandler in a war, and he's definitely going to get compensated for that. They're probably going to give him a title shot after that performance. So that should be his next fight. And as for Michael Chandler, firstly, take some time off. I mean, both these guys need time off after that fight. But when the time comes, man, I would like to see him fight Rafael dos Anjos. That's a perfect fight to make, in my opinion. And then we go to Bobby Green, TKOing Iaquinta in the first round, almost like 2 minutes into the fight. Bobby Green becomes the first guy to ever knock out Iaquinta, who is known for his chin and known for his durability. Tough his way through fights and just make it a war. But Green was on point. I mean, I've never seen him sharper than tonight. Hands down low, didn't care about Iaquinta's power at all. Just shoulder rolling on that right hand and then just popping his right hand in Iaquinta's face until the 1-2 presented itself. I was so shocked to see Iaquinta go down like that, but the speed difference and the precision was the main difference in the fight. Bobby Green knew where to land and where to defend in every single exchange. One of the best performances I've ever seen for Bobby Green, man. He is hitting his prime at 35 years old and is amazing to see. I still don't think you could throw him a top 15 fighter. I mean, he lost to Thiago Moises, who was number 15 not too long ago, and the lightweight division is pretty stacked. So I could see many different kind of fights for him. I could see him fighting maybe a young prospect like a Atman Zaitar. That would be an excellent fight. Or do you know which fight I want to see? Him versus Drew Dober. That's the perfect fight to make. And as for Iaquinta, man, there's 3 losses in a row. He was in a 2-year layoff, getting knocked out for the first time in his career. The UFC might use him as a stepping stone for a young prospect. Maybe for Mateusz Gamrot or a Guram Kutaladze or an Atman Zaitar or something like that. But personally for me, because of the 2-year layoff and because of the knockout loss, I want to see him fight Clay Guida. And I still do have to catch the rest of the fights. I know Ian Gary had an amazing knockout over Jordan Williams. Phil Hawes got knocked out, which is absolutely crazy. That's a huge upset. Imavov shutting down Emin Shabazian. Really got to see these fights play out. And I'll see you guys in the next video.